go ahead and try streaming sometime during afternoon instead of later at night. Because sometimes I'm just already tired by the time I usually want to stream at night. And also, my health is weird, so sometimes that affects on whether or not I actually get around to go ahead and stream around the nighttime. See how well afternoons go for me, even though the thing I'm worried about is more distractions. Haven't fixed that part of the tablet's controls yet, so figure out another time, but one needs to get some streaming out of this. Go ahead and get a redo ref sheet for this character. Maybe redo a couple characters. I wanna add like a couple characters. With the little thing on. Okay, too small. Do we feel that's like way too sensitive? Like there's two things and I only wanted to do one. Not like how suddenly tablet decides it wants to mess up, but I think I read could also just be like compatibility issue with like the preferences in Clip Studio Paint, which I never had to mess around with before. Well, we just started messing around a little bit. Weird, because I just never had that problem before. So hard to get started when I don't even know what font I want to use. Let's see. That one might be kind of fun. Click away to submit your tool again. I think it's probably good to mess around for like an actual art piece, but not a reference. Try a different pen. That's really thin line. I think that one should be good for now. You want thin lines, but not too thin. Good. Get details on the face symmetrical first. not like how it undoes too much when I use the undo button. Hello, Bobby. Alright, don't like how the pen is currently doing that, even though it wasn't doing that a second ago. All of a sudden, Clip Studio Paint stopped understanding and like stopped working perfectly for me because seems to be messing up a lot lately with the compatibility. I like Clip Studio Paint offers, but I don't know. I keep on running into problems like these. I've decided I do not actually like that pen. Messing around with both the program and tablet seems to be too much time. I also want to get it working for artfight. Mm. Which one? Brush for line art. Definitely need to look into that sensitivity issue though. The face going again. That's the undo button on this thing, but which one's the redo? And I just did something okay. Mess around with that for a second. Mm. Remember into which which thing controls like need to undo and redo. I do not remember which ones redo. Put it back into tablet thing. I can not find. That would be shortcut settings. That should be it. Where's redo? Where's redo? Sounds like my cat is being weird. Alright. And I'm just gonna leave it at the control and redo for now. And just get those working again. Right, so that messing something up, fix that. Close out a few things now. So I opened a bunch of stuff up to fix the tablet stuff. Go back to the pencil I was using. Yeah, pens even not even touching the tablet when I get that close. So like really sensitive. Apparently, for some reason that I didn't do anything to make it that sensitive. Forgot how that was, how that worked. They redo with little spikies on the side. Now that I remembered how this worked. And side spikies a little bit. Looks like some parts of the hull are thicker and thinner than others, which I'm actually kind of fine with, as long as it's mostly consistent. Mm, I don't want to do these legs. Mm. I think my cat's getting ready to bug me. Look, I'm almost 20 minutes. And here he is. Get all up in my business and try and be distracted. Always trying to go up in my face while I'm drawing. So rude. Whenever I'm trying to do something, he gets all snuggly. He hears me talking and he decides he wants to bug me. I think he's sitting down where my mouse is. I only hope I don't need to use it for anything important as I'm working on drawing. Now get your paws off the screen. You kinda have to go off the reference for the hands, but whatever. Looking a bit too weird. And go ahead and draw these parts in. Hopefully it can look better. Alright, decide if I want to add little hair pieces at the top later. Figure it out. Great, I do have to use my mouse. So now I want to copy and paste and put it on the other spot. Erasing spots. And do the back. Duplicate layer. Forgot that little part right between the legs there, but throw that out after. Stop putting your claws on the screen. Stop! Stop putting your claws on the screen. Alright, first Twitch thing, because it's a bit weird on my end. See if I can... Alright, looks like they fixed things, so that's good. Let's find the tablet pen again. Alright. Oh, no. That looks like the thing wants to be a little bit moody right now, but... My fight's like never great in the summer for some reason, so... Just sort of have to accept it as long as it works enough. Now let's figure out what parts I want to... Alright. Pick you up because you keep on putting your paws on the screen. Now you go on the floor. Right. Like it doesn't look like the erase, or is all in the symmetry tool. Is there one that can follow the symmetry tool? Guess not. Alright. Have to be careful with this. I get every last little spot. Make sure I don't erase too much. And this little part's gonna be fun. Oh, without the symmetry tool. Oh no. Really can't be bothered to see if I can get the symmetry to work right now. I want at least get through the line and done. It's got like at least 2 other references I want to draw. Might stream them, might not. I haven't played any games this month yet, which I need to see if there's a way to figure out how to get out with me working, because I really want to play with that one. It's been in my library for a while, but just didn't want to work stream properly last time. Worked fine on my end, but completely froze on the stream. And Cat has popped Popped back up here. Yeah, you'll go look out the window instead of bothering me. Right, I'm getting quiet now because I have no clue what to say. Bit of a problem. Let's say stuff. People to actually pop in, bother listening. But I am just not used to talking at all. Alright, gotta get. Right. Get big eraser. Erase a lot. I need to be able to draw this little part down here. Figure out how I want to do so behind view of legs. Also erase little ear parts that I don't need at the back view. That. Alright. Hopefully at least. Yeah. Right, so it does still at least work for the. And clicking the wrong button. Clicking all sorts of buttons now. Right. I'm good for now. Or make the butt look not bad. Or make the butt look like a butt. Good. Now, on this part that I forgot to do earlier, Right, another layer for... Oh, now the stream quality's dropping. Oh boy. With how Wi-Fi always is in the server, I'm not sure if this would be any better if I did it later at night. Right. Go in. Don't want that to be like completely solid. You. Little reference for this part. Right, the neck's coming up a bit weird down there. Now work on the close-ups. Eyelashes. I'm gonna save that for actually when I start coloring in the eyes. This part of the close-up done. Kitty cat is meowing. Kitty cat wants to jump up on the desk and bother me. There he goes, right across the keyboard. Let me see, doesn't mess anything up. Alright. She's gonna go ahead and find the original sketch on the sketchbook. Walking away. Well, maybe he's still here. If you don't, figure out that later. Good. We're in the sketchbook. Photo quality isn't as good as I want it to be to reference, so shift through for a second. Alright, I already found it. Very lucky flip. Figure out what I was originally going for in the sketch. And now my cat's gonna climb over the sketchbook. And he's plopping himself down. And he's gonna play with my hair. So I'm gonna have to move him. Get out of my way. Alright. Good look at the original sketch. I just place entirely on the keyboard. Yeah, it's fine, just resting on the keyboard. Leave it there. I go ahead. And drawing what is simultaneously least and favorite part to draw. I'm not that good drawing at it, but I think it'd be really cool to draw mouths if I was good at them. And my cat did something he shouldn't have. Alright. Back on the floor with you. Hopefully that didn't break when he knocked it over and plugged it, but you can stay on the floor. Stay on the floor because you're being bad. Don't you purr at me. You know what you did. Go lay down in the bed instead of bothering me because you're being naughty. Don't stare at me. Won't you be acting all cute? Oh, look at you. Swiping up the air, trying to be all cute. As you are. But you're also naughty. Wait. Or pat you a little bit. Stop being a little nuisance though. Right, the original sketch is a little messy as well, but gonna have to do with just a rough sheet. If I actually wanted actually good one, I could pay someone. Something I'm not interested in doing yet. It would be nice to pay someone to actually make a good reference sheet for me though. Or good reference sheets for all the characters I want. Actually good reference sheets for, because I've never been good at making reference sheets myself. Don't know how to place things, don't know how to. I actually have to start trying to make things as clear as possible. I just can't. Like full art pieces, like original, just random drawings of what I want to draw. Usually I'm more confident in those, even though I have to draw some things I'm not entirely confident in. I feel like there's like enough together. I can I'm like, well, I'm fine with this, but once I have to separate everything in ref sheets, just I'm not confident in my ability of making it look good. Ooh, should stop being sensitive. And the cat is going on the bed, so hopefully I won't have to worry about him for a little bit. I don't have to draw the whiskers, I don't think. also kind of want to because it makes it look all nice and fun. Whiskers. Earlier, and this should be recording time lapse, which would be good because then she want to use it in the video. I hope to post soon. First YouTube video. Making a channel a year ago and never posted anything to it, but I think it's something I have to export after I'm done on this piece. Could also use like this footage from the stream, but also then the PNG tuber's gonna be like right in the corner, which probably gonna be a big problem, probably, but also I think just plain regular footage of time lapse would probably be better. I have to draw face details on this one right here and draw the eyes on front body's hair. I'll move the sketchbook now that I don't need it anymore. For the reference for the mouth. Weird looking mouth, but should probably get the point across well enough, I hope. Now I want to make that look like lines even thinner because it got weird. Line art is going to be so inconsistent in this because I want thinner lines now. Details right here. Something I needed to keep in mind when I do like actual artwork. Instead of just random personal ref sheet. Whiskers. Don't do a little weird things. And sensitivity is not working in my favor right now. Just want to make some silly little whiskers on the cat. Alright. Pretty good for now. Get rid of the symmetry tool. How do I get rid of the symmetry tool? Forgot how to do that. Delete ruler, yeah. It's easy enough. Delete that one after. We don't this one. I need to draw a tail. I don't need 2 tails. Here we go. No, don't rename the layers. At least not yet. That part. And it sounds like the dog's going to come in a little bit. Erase this line. I'm gonna go check on the dog. erase this line. But don't forget to do that later. Right, good enough for now.